Everyone, welcome to Find the Intersection. My name is Paul Dezay. Grace and peace to you. Hey, today we're going to be talking about Luke 16 and 1 Timothy 6, two great passages. Yesterday's passage was Luke 16, 19 to 31, a parable about Lazarus and the rich man and Hades. Really good stuff. So as we jump into this one, a little bit of context. So last week we talked about the dishonest manager. And then after the parable, the dishonest manager, Jesus says you can't serve God and wealth, right? So there's this comparison. Good morning, Barry. And then right after that, it talks about, this is verse number 14, the Pharisees who were lovers of money heard this and they ridiculed him. So in other words, the Pharisees are really the context of this. Jesus is trying to teach and show by example the Pharisees love money more than they love God. You can't serve two masters, and that's the context. And so into this context, Jesus tells a parable about a guy named Lazarus, who was a poor man, and then an unknown rich man, who the Pharisees play the part, right? So there's these two people. The rich man feasts daily, right? And the poor man, Lazarus, sits outside his gate and begs for food, trying to get the scraps. They both die. They go to Hades, okay? So Hades is interesting. Hades is Greek mythology. So Jesus is using something that they know, and that's what parables often. He uses physical things or things that they would have been talking about. So Greek mythology was such a big deal around this time. Jesus uses Hades as an example to get people thinking, right? So in Hades, which is the land of the dead, right? There's a chasm that separates Abraham and the good Jewish people and the heathens, right? And so the rich man is on the wrong side of the chasm in Hades. And he is dying of thirst, he's suffering, and he would do anything to be able to tell his family to make good decisions so they don't end up where he is, right? So that's the kind of the story, but the context is so important. These are the Pharisees who love money, and this rich man represents the Pharisees who love money. So the question that I had when I read this yesterday was, am I Lazarus or the rich man in this story? Am I someone who is suffering, or am I the guy who's feasting daily and ignoring the people that are poor right near me? Now in America, this is a tough question because we're richer than the rest of the world. So I'm struggling with this a little bit today. Maybe I'm more like the rich man. And so for me, this wealth that God has given me, and I'm a pastor, so I'm not like wealthy, but what the blessings that God has given me aren't necessarily for my own feasting, right? My stewardship is to use what God has given me on behalf of those who are in need, right? So anyway, those are things that I'm thinking of. I'd like to know, what you think of this parable? It's very interesting when you take it in context. Jesus is really talking about the love of money, which leads us into today's passage, which is from 1 Timothy chapter 6. So we're closing out 1 Timothy. And Paul talks about the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. So there's contentment in Paul's narrative here. There's contentment in which we grab hold or seize the good life, the eternal life, the true life that God has promised us. And we find content with our stuff and with our money. But there's the fear or the concern here of worshiping money, which is the root of all kinds of evil, right? So we're talking about idolatry here, and there's all kinds of evil that come out of the love of money. We have, every type of evil really kind of seems to find its root in the love of money. Corruption and greed and all of these things come out of that, but also things that we don't think of, human trafficking, right? Racism, a lot of that is all built into this love of money, right? And so Paul says, fight the good fight. Seize, and this is kind of, there's like a physical word here, seize hold of the eternal life that God has promised us, right? Don't fall to the trap of loving money. Be content with what you have and use that for the benefit of others. Do good works, right? So fight the good fight. Recognize that there's a war going on in the way that we utilize money, right? And so the temptation is for us as Christ followers is just to follow the way of the world and use money the way everyone else does. But Paul is warning Timothy, as he pastors the church in Ephesus, to teach the people to use money for the kingdom and not fall in love with wealth. So you already see the comparisons between these two passages, yesterday's passage and today's passages. There's this root here where we're talking about wealth and money. And we have an example of Pharisees that Jesus uses as a parable in the rich man. And then Paul is mentoring Timothy with these words about the love of money. So what did you get out of both passages? Share your thoughts in the comments. And we'll be back tomorrow as we continue our journey through Jeremiah. Love Jeremiah. Hope you guys have a great day, everybody. Grace and peace.